Let's get something clear. After this past week, we have now found out that the MLB has a Hall of Fame problem. What is going on with Pete Rose? What is going on with the rest of the Hall of Fame? Let's break it all down.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and redeem code LOCKEDON MLB, Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. As always, I'm Braden Iwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Iwasco, Carter First too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. Also, go follow our main Twitter account. It's at Locked On Jays. As well, hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. If you're listening anywhere else, head over to the YouTube page, hit the subscribe button. It's free. You might as well do it. We're not charging you. Nobody's charging you. Hit that button. It's not hard. As well, you guys can get your videos, your live streams, your podcasts, your shorts, your anything pretty much we post on YouTube will be right there, free and available for you guys. Hit the subscribe button. Lots to get into today. And we are going to talk Blue Jays. In the second segment, third segment, we're going to talk Blue Jays. We got to talk about the offense. Can this offense stay hot? Can this series, can the Blue Jays go on and win another series? Can they go and win series? This is a pre-record. We don't know what happens in Game 3 for those of you who know, because I work late. And Carter also works. Sometimes this kind of stuff with the Winnipeg Jets being in the playoffs sort of messes with my schedule sometimes. It is what it is. I'm happy to be working those games, but once in a blue moon, we do have to do a pre-record. This is one of them. It is the night before. It's not like we're doing this 10 days before. And this is the day that the Hall of Fame problem happened. And I wanted to talk about it on yesterday's episode. We had Tristan Baranowski on. It was great. He did fantastic. But we didn't really want to overshadow some of the Jays stuff. But today, this is a conversation, and you guys can tell me if I'm right or wrong. I've had many of conversations sitting on the couch with my buddies talking about the Hall of Fame and how brutal the system is and what a complete and utter joke that some guys aren't in or aren't eligible for. Well, let's get right into it. Pete Rose, Joe Jackson are out of the MLB purgatory. And I'm going to give you guys a full breakdown before I throw it to Carter. We're going to give our takes, our opinions, because I want to bring this back to the main guy that gets brought up every single time that you talk about the Hall of Fame. We'll get into that. Mr. Barry Bonds himself. We'll talk about him as well. Pete Rose and Joe Jackson have been removed from Major League Baseball's ineligible list in a stunning and precedented shifting decision by Commissioner Rob Manfred. And this was Don Vannetta Jr. That's he's from ESPN. He's the one that was reporting on this story. Vannetta obtained a letter written by Manfred to Jeffrey Lankov, an attorney for Rose, who petitioned for Rose's removal from the list earlier this year. Pete Rose is dead, for those of you who don't know. Shoeless Joe Jackson is dead. The commissioner said in this letter, his rationale came down to Rose's death, and he overturned the longstanding precedent regarding violations of Rule 21, which covers sports betting. Obviously, a person no longer with us cannot represent, this is a big one, cannot represent a threat to the integrity of the game, Manfred wrote. Moreover, it is hard to conceive a penalty that has more deterrent effect than one that lasts a lifetime with no reprieve. And he continues on, Rule 21 contains no language about lifetime bans unless a specific length of penalty is called for in certain subsections of the rule. Offending players are otherwise declared permanently ineligible. Permanently ineligible. There is a lot to go on here. At the end of the day, it comes down to Pete Rose is dead. Are we okay to let him now be in the Hall of Fame? And don't get me wrong, he's not immediately in the Hall of Fame. This isn't Manfred's decision. This has to go through the Hall of Fame committee. It's a very frustrating situation. Don't get me wrong. You don't want to see sports betting from the players. You don't want to see game tampering in the event of Shoeless Joe. You don't want to see the scandals that go on because it affects the game that's being played. I 100% agree with that. Penalties should be given out. Bans from the Hall of Fame should not be one of them. To me, this is saying what Manfred has been saying in all of this, to me, which doesn't make any sense, is that if these guys are still alive, they are deterrents from the game of baseball that we all know. But as soon as they're dead, it's fine. Let them in. What this is saying to me is that we don't want to give these Hall of Fame caliber players the opportunity to enjoy themselves and relish in the accomplishments of being in the Hall of Fame. Now, I'm going to go on a rant about Barry Bonds. But Carter, I've started this by going on a rant and laying out what's happening here. Your thoughts, because I know that me and you sit down with our buddies and we talk Barry Bonds. I sit at work and talk with people. I just had a conversation like a month ago. I don't want to call it an argument. It was a good conversation about Barry Bonds and about Pete Rose. Now, I want to put this out there before I send it to you. Pete Rose, probably not the best guy in the world, right? There was some allegations, is what I'll say. I'll say lightly. Do your research. Go look up Pete Rose. You'll know what I'm talking about. There was tax evasion. There was gambling scandals, betting on games. And of course, that's not touching on the major thing that had happened or allegedly whatever. Go look it up. I don't want to speak on that because I'm not a lawyer and I don't want to also get in trouble for speaking on something I don't know enough about. Whatever happened in that situation, go look it up. But Carter, how do you feel about all this? Because I'm a little bit being torn in two here.
Yeah, I just want to quickly clarify a couple things before I go into my opinion. Like you said, Pete Rose banned from the MLB due to some gambling allegations, and then obviously some other stuff as well. That again, you can look into that on your own time. We'll kind of just go over the proven stuff that we know of for sure. And then with Shoeless Joe Jackson, among others, Shoeless Joe Jackson was tampering in a World Series game. He said he was trying to throw a game in 1920, obviously trying to collude and switch up the World Series winner. And just to clarify on the rule and just a little bit of an extension to what Braden said is therefore is what Rob Manfred said. I have concluded that a permanent ineligibility ends upon the passing of the disciplined individual, and Mr. Rose will be removed from the permanent ineligible list. So like you said, as soon as somebody dies, apparently they can just get taken off the list. So now we'll kind of go into our opinions, kind of go into our takes on this. For me, if you're going to put somebody on the ban list, clearly they did something wrong. Clearly they did something that goes against the game of baseball. Just because Pete Rose passed away doesn't make that gambling any better. So in my opinion, if you're going to make this decision, if you're going to put these guys on the ban list, just because they passed on doesn't mean that all of a sudden that what they did is okay, what they did is all right. I think if you did something bad enough to get put on this ban list, you either have to not be put on the ban list whatsoever, and this rule shouldn't even be applicable, or you have to kind of ride it out. And if you ban them initially, it's not like there was an investigation that realized, oh, Pete Rose actually did not gamble on games. He did actually not tamper with some of the legality with the major leagues. Nothing that he has done changed whatsoever. It's just because he passed on, all of a sudden they're going to take him off this ban list. So just the overall premise of what Rob Manfred has tried to do here just doesn't make any logical sense to me whatsoever.
No, it makes less than no sense to me. This, and again, I want to get your 100% stance on where do you think Pete Rose should be Hall of Fame eligible or not? I want to get what your honest to God opinions are, because I'm gonna tell you mine straight up. I have a tough time with this kind of stuff because in the one side of things, the Houston Astros cheating to win their World Series is absolutely diabolical and disgusting. I think that those guys are scumbags, scum of the earth players. And as much as I love Springer, that year and that team there should have been more punishments laid out. And don't get me wrong, some of the pitchers handled it themselves. They were plunking guys, but it doesn't take away from the fact that those guys got rings. That was disgusting. In the sense of Barry Bonds, another clear-cut, easy answer for me here. It wasn't illegal. It wasn't illegal at the time. So if he was juicing or not, there was no rule against. So fair enough. He should be Hall of Fame eligible. Tough. The rules weren't in place. Should have they been? Yeah. Yeah. But they weren't. So Barry Bonds did what? If somebody came to me and there's no rule against it, and they say, hey, we can help you recover from injury faster, you'll be way stronger and you'll hit the ball 1,000,000 feet. Do you want to take that? Yeah, probably. Yeah. And I would ask, is there a rule against it? No? Give it to me. He's being punished outside of the rules for his time. He was still an amazing baseball player, and he should be in the Hall of Fame. Pete Rose, gambling on games. Horrific act, shouldn't be allowed. In the same regards, still an amazing baseball player. A Hall of Fame caliber baseball player. And the punishment for betting on games, what it should have been is, hey, you are done in the MLB. You don't get to play anymore. It is a ban from the MLB, but the merit of which you played in the major leagues should now still hold up. Are you worthy of being an MLB caliber Hall of Fame player? On what has happened. You get fined a ton of money and you get kicked out of the league, but everything before that stands on its own merit. So as much as Pete Rose, probably not a good guy. That's a Hall of Fame caliber baseball player. That's where I stand. I think all those guys, even the World Series cheating, I think honestly, out of anything, out of Pete Rose and out of Barry Bonds, the Astros cheating to win the World Series because it was an entire team collusion. Shoeless Joe throw in there too, not great. That to like collude against, not great. And the Pete Rose stuff, I don't know how far the extent went of the cheating and of the gambling and of the fixing games. I don't know. Barry Bonds to me is the absolute least offender out of all this, but Pete Rose as well. I think you have to take him on his merits as an MLB player and what he did in the league. And that's all. That's it.
I'm I agree with some things you said, but I also disagree with some things you said. I think with a lot of these cases, it has to be taken on a personal basis. I don't think you can lump all of these guys together and have the same opinion. So I'll start with Barry Bonds. Like you said, at that point, juicing was legal. Everyone was on steroids during that time. So again, it's like, say, for example, the torpedo bats. Somehow they found out that this would be a huge advantage, but right now they're legal. Right now, there is nothing saying that there is any advantage in torpedo bats. Realistically, there is no significant advantage to those torpedo bats. But just for this example, say there was. Right now, they're legal. So say the Yankees were using these, Aaron Judge was using these, Anthony Volpe, whoever it is. If somehow they find out 10 years down the line, hey, there's a significant advantage of using these torpedo bats, I don't think you can fault the Yankees players for using something that was legal at the time. So when we're talking about Barry Bonds, I think that this guy should be in the Hall of Fame for sure. I don't understand why. It's not just singling him out, obviously, but when something was legal at that time, I don't understand how you can use that against somebody that was just, again, trying to play the game at their best ability. When it comes to Pete Rose, when it comes to Shoeless Joe Jackson, when it comes to some of these other guys that, again, have done things that weren't a part of the game at that time, were illegal, not even just for the Major League Baseball, for just legality, for criminal law. They were just illegal things that they were doing in the game of baseball. Being in the Hall of Fame is an MLB legacy. It is the image of the MLB. Some of these guys that are in the Hall of Fame are guys that people will remember for eternity. Like we talk about the Babe Ruths. You talk about Pete Rose is going to be one of those guys. You talk about, obviously, the Barry Bonds. You can talk about Randy Jackson. There's so many different guys that you can go down the list. These guys carry a massive legacy. So with some of these guys, for example, say Roberto Osuna, maybe a little bit more of a Toronto Blue Jays example. This guy was a domestic abuser. I don't care how good he was at baseball. He was not a good person. He was breaking laws. He was hurting people. And again, Pete Rose, again, there's some allegations against Pete Rose that he's not necessarily the greatest person. So I think this is a big MLB image thing as well. You don't want a guy that is not a good person representing your baseball league. So Pete Rose, a guy that gambled on baseball games. I don't care how good he was in the major leagues. At the end of the day, this is an image for the MLB. If they admit this guy to the Hall of Fame, again, it's just not a good look when you're putting a guy that isn't a good person. I don't care how good he was at baseball. It's just a bad look for the MLB if you're putting terrible people in the Hall of Fame that represent your league.
To me, they then going on what you just said, they've completely blown it. Yeah. Because MLB has given them the okay to now be in the Hall of Fame. And don't get me wrong, the Hall of Fame committee is insanely picky about who they let in. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the Hall of Fame committee being picky. And I've said I don't think Pete Rose is a great human being. But in the same respect, what are the classifications? Are you looking for an ambassador of baseball? Are you looking for the guys that then who are we admitting? Are we admitting the best baseball players into the Hall of Fame? What is this for? If the MLB has come out and said now that these guys are fine to be in the Hall of Fame, but now the Hall of Fame committee goes, these guys weren't great people. That's a worse look on the MLB. That's a worse look on Rob Manfred than anybody else. Because he's saying, to me, this is fine. And then the Hall of Fame committee, this just shows a complete lack of cohesion between the Hall of Fame committee and the MLB. A complete joke. And again, I am not the biggest Hall of Fame guy. I'm not a huge guy that goes back and looks at a bunch of stuff. But these are conversations that everybody's having around the table, right? If we're sitting down having a couple beers, Carter, and we're talking baseball, half the time it ends up going back to Barry Bonds and who's upset about Barry Bonds not being in the Hall of Fame. And you're right, Barry Bonds is a different beast here. And we can have that argument. I think most people are in the same state of mind that Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame because it's an absolute travesty that the Hall of Fame committee is doing this to him. Pete Rose is not a good guy. And if we're going for basing everybody's judgment on if they should be in the Hall of Fame, on if they were a good person or not, half the people in the Hall of Fame probably shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. A lot of racism. A lot of bad stuff going on a lot of those guys. Are we taking the best baseball players? Or are we taking, hey, who's a nice guy here? And I get the image thing, but I bet you if you go look and you heard stories on some of those Hall of Fame guys, I bet you're not getting the best response from them. So where's the line? And I think that that's something the MLB and the Hall of Fame Commission have to get in line together with, is what is the line? What are we talking about? Because I can't take the image thing because a lot of those guys probably weren't the best people. I don't know.
See, the line is proof. That's what it is. Again, at that time, the 1940s, 1950s, I'm not saying racism is something that should be accepted. It was horrible. Nobody should be racist whatsoever. But at that time, it's more commonplace. And at that point, there's a lot of laws that aren't necessarily illegalizing or criminalizing racism at that time. Kind of the same idea as steroids. Again, different scenarios, obviously, because one is just, you're doing something to yourself. Something else, the racism is, you're hurting other people in that sense. So I think the biggest thing is Pete Rose. It is proven that, again, he gambled on these games. Shoeless Joe Jackson, it is proven that he colluded in the World Series. Some of this other stuff is minus for sure. There is definitely a chance. There is probably legitimate causes that these guys, again, weren't necessarily the greatest people, but nothing is proven. Nothing is set in stone. So that would be the biggest thing for me. It's just the proof. It's the burden of proof. Kind of if you're looking at this from a legal standpoint, I guess, for me being in school, maybe that's why I'm kind of drawing back to this. But overwhelmingly, when you just look back at this point, it goes back to one of the first things I said on this podcast is that Pete Rose gambling on games, Shoeless Joe Jackson colluding in baseball games, that what they did when they were alive does not change just because they passed on. It doesn't make it any better or any worse just because time has passed. So I think the whole kind of encompassing thing here that we're going back to is that this whole decision just doesn't make any sense. Why is it when somebody passes and ends up being rested in their final resting place, why is it all of a sudden okay? And now that they can celebrate their career and now they are eligible for the Hall of Fame. That just entire encompassing point makes no sense whatsoever. So I guess to kind of encompass my argument and just kind of bring everything back together, with a lot of these guys, yeah, maybe they weren't necessarily the best guys, but again, when you look back, say you look up, I don't know, Randy Jackson or Randy Johnson or whoever you want to look up, maybe they did some bad things. People aren't perfect. Again, people do bad things, but there's a difference between doing bad things and not being a great person, maybe being just kind of rude and disrespectful, than, hurting people or colluding in a game or just having the integrity of baseball compromised at the end of the day. So with this rule, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why does something all of a sudden change dependent on time passing? I think if it was wrong at that time, unless there is a launched investigation, somehow they realize, hey, Pete Rose did not gamble on these baseball games. He did not evade taxes. He did not do all these other allegations that are up against him. At that point, then you can kind of free him up. In that point, if there's just a logical reasoning or if there's cause to actually take him off the list, it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense logically just because, again, time has passed and somebody has ended up passing away, they're all of a sudden just eligible and we can now celebrate their career.
Yeah, and you know what? Like I said, probably if it came down to my vote, I'm majorly against cheating. I think you have to play within the rules. So if it was me and I have a Hall of Fame ballot and they say, hey, Barry Bonds, Shoeless Joe Jackson, and Pete Rose all on the card, who do you want in? I'm probably only marking one name down personally, and that's Barry Bonds. But I think that's my argument. I'm not necessarily arguing that Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe and these guys didn't disgrace the game, because in a certain sense they did. My biggest problem is that there is absolutely zero. I don't know what the right word is, but there is zero accountability here between the league and the Hall of Fame committee. And these rules are now all over the place. I can just go and make one up because, somebody complained at me. So I think, do I agree that Pete Rose maybe shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, or Shoeless Joe? Yeah, probably. I'm probably on that side. But if these are the rules and Manfred has now said they're fine, they're eligible, well, then this is going to be, I think, a very bad turn when the Hall of Fame committee now turn him down. And pretty much it's going to look like the Hall of Fame committee versus what Rob Manfred just put out. So I think this is just a bad look all around. I think that Manfred should have just been and said, hey, it's a lifetime ban. He cheated. He disgraced the game. That's it. And I think you would have avoided a lot of problems. But I think there's going to be a lot more coming out now about not only these guys, but the Barry Bonds, everybody else with this, in the steroid era, all this stuff. I think it's going to be a way bigger conversation. And I think Manfred put himself in front of that bus.
Yeah, just again, when you're talking about a league as big as the MLB, a corporation as big as Major League Baseball, you would think that they would, use a little bit more, just like think about their decision a little bit more, especially a decision as drastic as this. But the reason that we're talking about this is just to inspire some conversation. Obviously, if we're just talking about the baseball, Pete Rose is one of the best to ever do it. Led the MLB in hits, led the MLB in at bats. And this is, again, in the history of the MLB, he is number one in all of these categories. So if you're just talking about the baseball player, that is one thing. I guess the issue really is here, how much does morality kind of come into this Hall of Fame discussion when we're talking about Major League Baseball players? And that is something that I'm interested in. I'm sure Braden is interested to see your guys' opinions, your comments as well. Do you think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame? How do you feel about this decision by Rob Manfred? And overall, what is your take on this issue that is going on right now and that just came out a few days ago? But after this, obviously, we just talked about Pete Rose and all that stuff for 22 minutes. Kind of had this planned out. We figured we'd go pretty long for this first segment, but we do want to get into some Blue Jays talk, some stuff we want to talk about the offense. Can this offense remain consistent? What are our expectations for the rest of the year? We have a bunch more that are going to come at you guys after this short break.
Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. I talk about Game Time all the time. That's where I buy literally all of my tickets that I go to sporting events on, because they give me the best deal. They have their all-in pricing. They have the seat views where I can actually see my view from my seat, which is a big component for me. And have you ever decided at the last minute to head to the ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group of people to come with you. Game Time makes that possible. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Ooh, Carter, that was a segment and a half. I loved it though. You know what? These are my favorite conversations, especially around the Hall of Fame and looking back over different stuff, because it's the conversations I have on the couch with buddies. And to me, when we're doing a podcast, that's, it doesn't always have to be news all the time. It can be, hey, what are you and your buddies talking about? And that's when sometimes you ask you guys, if you're sitting around with your family or friends, what are you guys chatting about? If it's Blue Jays, if it's MLB wide, tell us the conversations. Those are the fun ones. And we always talk about different things like that at work. And it gets everybody's blood pumping, gets the juices going, because everybody has an opinion on stuff like this. And again, I will throw this out there because I don't want it to come across bad. Pete Rose, not a good guy. All right. Do your research. I will not say it on here. Not a good person. And like Carter said, leave us a comment down below if you guys think they should be in the Hall of Fame. Think this is all a big joke. Where is the line of morality? Where is the line of what's too much? What can a player come back from? How much do you take? Is it just baseball, or is it everything encompassing? How do you agree with the league stance on this? Do you agree that the Hall of Fame and the league should be a united front? Let us know what you guys think. It's a big conversation, and you know what? We'll try to get back to you guys in some of the comments and everything as well. But Carter, let's talk about this offense. Do you honestly believe that they can stay hot? This team has been known to be very hot and cold. And when they're cold, dude, this offense is freezing cold. But when they're hot, they look good. It's been good over the past little bit here. Do you think it's a possibility that this team can actually hit home runs this season and have a somewhat mediocre offense?
Yeah, before I get into my opinion, I'm just going to go over what the current offensive stats are regarding this Toronto Blue Jays team. We are recording this on Wednesday night. So again, we're just not including the 3-1 game that just happened. Obviously, this is a pre-recording, so we're not sure what happened on the Thursday game. Obviously, we're very optimistic that the Toronto Blue Jays can win this game and win a series. So the stats might change a little bit here. I'm not going to change a whole lot, obviously, from the Wednesday game. If anything, it's going to get worse, but I'll quickly go over the rundown here. Now, the Toronto Blue Jays offense is 20th in the league in runs, 10th in hits, 10th in average, 14th in on-base percentage, 18th in slugging, 13th in OPS, 26th in home runs, still trying to get that number up, 21st in stolen bases. And then there's a bunch of pitching stats as well. The only one I'll go over is that they have given up the most home runs in Major League Baseball still at this point. But my expectation for the offense, just kind of going over the current trends and everything like that, is players are going to be hot and cold. The MLB season is an absolute roller coaster. You're not going to be able to hit 450 the entire year. And hopefully with a lot of these MLB players, they're not going to hit 150, not going to hit 200 the entire year. They're going to go through peaks and valleys. So right now, if we're looking at this Toronto Blue Jays offense, who's hot right now? Daulton Varsho's hot. Alejandro Kirk looks really good right now. George Springer is a weird one because he's been good the entire year. So is this just how George Springer is going to be for the last 3 quarters of the season? Or are we going to see some sort of fall off? I think we're going to be somewhere in the middle there. We do expect more from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Santander can't be this unproductive for that long. Bichette starting to pick it up a little bit, starting to see the power there. Ernie Clement looks good. Miles Straw has kind of looked good the entire season. So honestly, I think it's not going to change a whole lot. I think what we've kind of seen throughout this first quarter of the season is what we're going to have to expect for the rest of the season. I think we're going to get some more production from our top dogs. I think Vladdy and Santander will obviously heat up. I don't think they're going to keep the pace of, hitting under 20 home runs. They're both way better than 20 home runs. So I think you can expect them to get a whole lot better with the guys like Tyler Heineman, the guys like Miles Straw. I'll throw Nathan Lucas in there. I think Ernie Clement can be productive because he was productive last season. Nathan Lucas was fairly productive in his short time with the Major League team as well. But I think when you're looking at this team, again, we've said a lot of times, nobody expects this to be a top 5 offense. At least you shouldn't expect this to be a top 5 offense. If that's your expectations, you're going to be let down this entire season. I think where we want to kind of be at and what this team's identity is that they've gotten on base at a decent clip. They're hitting, they get hits. Like hitting isn't necessarily the problem. Getting on base isn't necessarily the problem. Braden has said this probably a million times in the last 2 weeks. It is the timely hitting. It is coming up in those clutch scenarios, and it's having the big inning. We haven't really seen that a whole lot from this team. We've seen them tack on 1 run, 2 runs here and there, but we haven't really seen this team put teams to bed, especially when they get the starting pitcher on the ropes. They get bases loaded. They'll get runners on first and second with no outs. They'll get runners on third and second with 1 out. Whatever it ends up being, sometimes they do score, and yes, maybe it is nice to obviously get 1 run here and there. But I think the biggest thing with this team is, are they going to be able to get runs in bunches? And unfortunately, we have not seen that up to this point. But I am optimistic that it will get a little bit better as the season does go on. So I am expecting, honestly, the Toronto Blue Jays offense to kind of be dead average. I think it's going to be around that 13 to 18 mark. I don't think it's going to go too much higher. I don't think it's going to go too much lower. I do hope that, again, the timely hitting does come into effect. But this team's identity is just kill teams of singles. And that, unfortunately, is going to be the brand of baseball that we're going to watch this season.
Yeah, again, I think right now of what we're seeing, if this is what we get for the rest of the year, which I think is a little bit much to ask for, because I don't think that necessarily the amount of home runs that were hit is going to keep happening. Like I don't know if you can expect a home run, 2 home runs a game. I just don't think that, like Carter said, that this is what this offense is. It's going to come in some games where it's you're singling teams to death, and you just hope that that's enough that can work. But I think they have the potential. We're seeing what we're seeing out of Daulton, Varsho, and Springer. And again, I don't necessarily think Springer is going to be this godlike being that we all thought he was at the beginning of this year. But hopefully that's when Anthony Santander starts hitting home runs and Vladdy really gets going. And you see the continuation from Bichette. And you know what? Tristan Baranowski said it really well yesterday is you need your best players to be your best players. And right now, we're not seeing Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Anthony Santander being consistent enough as you need them to be. So I'm optimistic. I think that there is room for this team to be a good baseball team. The consistency just has never proven it to me that they can be there through an entire season. So that is something that I'm really looking forward to seeing them hopefully prove me wrong and prove to me that they can be a good offense or I'll even say it above average offense, Carter.
Yeah, I'm gonna just say one more thing, and I think we're gonna kind of take it into this Tiger series preview. Is I want to kind of give Vladdy like not his flowers here, but I kind of want to defend this guy a little bit. When we talk about Vladdy in the podcast, when people talk about Vladdy as a fan base, people really kind of crap on him. They really give him a very hard time. And it's not like he's playing bad necessarily.
No.
He's hitting 290. He has an 800 OPS. Like he's having productive at bats. He looks really good in the box. The issue is we're not really seeing the home runs. We're not seeing the extra base hits, which again, when you look at it from the big picture, again, we talked about a little bit in the last episode, this guy is making $500 million. He is the third highest MLB player in the history of the league. So when you see that figure, you see that contract, you got to expect, at least the expectation now after fans see this contract is fans are expecting Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to be a top 5 player in baseball. Because you see that contract's top 3 contract in baseball. You have the Shohei Ohtanis, you have the Aaron Judges, you have the Kyle Tuckers, the Juan Sotos. We can kind of go on with that list. We've kind of talked about it. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is very good. He is one of the best players in the league, but he is not a Kyle Tucker. He is not Aaron Judge. He is not Shohei Ohtani. So while I do expect the power to come, I think the expectation is set fairly, like a little bit too high for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Just looking at his career stats, 288 hitter is an 861 OPS. Ideally, he sits around that 900 OPS. If you're expecting Vladdy to hit over 1,000 OPS, that's kind of what you got from that 2021 year. I think, unfortunately, that will be like like what's the word I'm looking for? A liability year, just a one-hit wonder year. Whatever you guys should know what I'm trying to say here. I can't figure out the exact statement I'm trying to get. But yeah, that is probably Vladdy's peak, unfortunately, in that season. So I think with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., if he does start hitting home runs, if he does, even if it's a 2-week stretch where, he hits 4 home runs in 10 baseball games, I think that will be able to bump his numbers up to a spot where everyone can be pretty comfortable with what Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is doing.
Yeah, that's all it is. Everybody just wants to see the power. You're paying this guy for the power, and you expect him to deliver on that. That's what you get out of a $500 million player is you get home runs, and you get consistent home runs, and most likely the stats that he's going to put up. That's what a $500 million player should be, is the expectation should be set high. Should it be set high as the third best player in all of baseball? Probably not. I think that's unrealistic for any player to, if they're not Shohei Ohtani, even if they're Juan Soto or Aaron Judge, to expect them to go out there and be the absolute best player in baseball when there are 6 guys that probably could be the best player in baseball, or a top, say there's 10 guys that all could be in the top 3. Ohtani's probably right now above and beyond the best player in baseball. Aaron Judge is right up there, and Soto is pretty tough to beat. But there are guys that might pass them, might have better stats than those guys. Now you're just hoping that Vladimir Guerrero Jr., all you want from him is to be in the conversation. And right now, I don't know that for a top 5, top 10 player, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is in that conversation right now. And I think that's where the frustration comes in. So I agree with you. I don't think he's been bad. I don't think he's been bad at all. I just think that for what you're paying him, he's got to be a little bit better. That's it. But at the end of the day, right now, where this offense is sitting, I think you're fairly happy with what you've come to see. But we do have to get into the series preview. So we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with all of that for you guys. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. You guys know how much I love FanDuel. You know how much Skylar Peters loves FanDuel. I'm going to have to get him on here just to record a FanDuel, how much that guy loves FanDuel. The NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs, all in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it even easier to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Trust me, I have won big, I've lost big, but for the most part, I've been doing all right. I cash out when I should cash out, and I put more money in. Every time a new season kicks off, we get to the playoffs. I'm going pretty hard in on the MLB right now. I took a break from the NHL. I just feel like playoffs is too hard for me. NBA though, my buddy's doing amazing in the NBA. So maybe give that a try if you guys want to. You can put up some player props. I do the live same game parlay, so I know that this guy's starting out hot. I'll throw some money on him. New to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up and head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Carter, I'll throw it to you to tee up the series here as I try to still figure out how to convert a video to MP4 to MP3.
It sounds like a plan. The word I was looking for is anomaly. Thanks, Braden. Not a very good dictionary, unfortunately, over there.
I said blip. I think that's not even close, but it's it's in the same conversation, I guess.
Anyway, yeah, unfortunately, I think we have seen Vladdy's peak. But moving on to obviously this upcoming series against the Detroit Tigers. Not the most favorable pitching matchups, like I did say with Tristan Baranowski on the last episode. We do miss Tiger Skubal, so that is obviously a good thing for the Toronto Blue Jays. So just looking at the pitching matchups that we do have here, it's going to be Jack Flaherty. The first game that most likely will be against Bowden Francis. It's not confirmed for the Toronto Blue Jays, but I mean, just based off the last series, you can kind of make some pretty educated guesses on what's going to happen here. You have Reese Olson on the Saturday game. That should be against Jose Urena, Eric Lauer, maybe Yariel Rodriguez is thrown in there, probably a Jose Urena start. Then you have Jackson Joby that will be going against Jose Berrios. So not the most ideal pitching matchups, unfortunately, for this Toronto Blue Jays team. The Tigers pitching staff starting pitching is very good. It is one of the best in baseball when you're looking at it on paper. Jack Flaherty, obviously, very dominant in that World Series run the Dodgers did have, kind of picking up from where he left off there. Going to be a real test for this offense. Again, hopefully that they did win a series against the Tampa Bay Rays. Obviously, you guys will know the day that we are sending this out. You guys will have the final score available. So hopefully they can kind of carry some momentum into this baseball game. But like I said, when Tristan Baranowski was on this podcast, if they can get through this Padres and Tigers series at 500, if they can go 3-3, I'm going to be absolutely over the moon. I just want to see how competitive these baseball games are. I want to see if the Toronto Blue Jays can be in the same realm as the Detroit Tigers, as the San Diego Padres, and survive these next 6 games, just staying afloat and being able to be in the same league as some of these top teams, that if they do go on this World Series, or if somehow they do make the playoffs and make a deep playoff run, these are some of the teams that you might have to end up seeing with the Detroit Tigers in the AL, obviously, and then maybe the San Diego Padres pull an upset against the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Cubs, you name it, will be an absolute battle in the NL East. But you're going to have to beat the good teams, obviously, if you want to go far in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, that goes without saying. We need this team to win some games here. So again, Tristan Baranowski did give his take. He said he wants them to go positive. He wants them to win out of the next. What he said was he wanted them to win the final game of the Rays, and then win go 3-3 in the other series. And that's where I'm at. I think in the next 2 series, you got to go 3-3. You got to be able to defeat or get 1 or 2 against the Tigers, and one or hopefully 2 against the Padres. But Carter, I guess for the pitching matchups here, I guess I'm going to give my take. And I don't love game 1. I don't love game 1 at all. I don't think Bowden can get this one done, especially at Jack Flaherty. I'm scared. I'm terrified. Game 2, to be honest with you, Carter, I'm terrified. So game 1 and game 2, I'm terrified. As a Blue Jays fan, I'm shaking in my boots. Game 3, Blue Jays win game 3. There you go. That's my take.
See, I think that somehow we're going to have kind of what we saw in the last series, where you have the Eric Lauer show, you have the Jose Urena show. I think somehow the Toronto Blue Jays are going to go against, every logical being in my head and pull away a win in that game. I wish I knew what the result was in this Tampa Bay Rays series. I think if they win that series, I think they will be able to continue momentum and somehow they're going to shock the world and beat the Detroit Tigers and they're going to win the series 2-1. I'm going to backtrack once we get to the San Diego Padres series because I think that team is a whole lot better than the Detroit Tigers. The Detroit Tigers are a good baseball team. They have they have the best record in the AL. So again, nothing to scoff at. But I think somehow the Toronto Blue Jays, if they win against the Tampa Bay Rays on Thursday, again, you guys will know obviously if that did happen. I do have them winning 2-1. If they do lose against the Tampa Bay Rays, they're not going to carry the momentum. They're going to kind of do the roller coaster of a ride the Toronto Blue Jays do, and they are consistently inconsistent. So I think it really depends on that Tampa Bay Rays game. But I'm fairly optimistic about the Tiger series. And once we get the San Diego Padres series, I will go more into my thoughts on that one. But I will say it's not the same as that Detroit Tigers series. So hopefully, again, you can just kind of stay afloat throughout these next few games. The schedule does get a little bit easier after the San Diego Padres series. So let's see what the Toronto Blue Jays are made of. It's going to be a weekend from hell, I guess you could say. At least it is at the Rogers Center, so you do have a little bit of an advantage there. But yeah, it's going to be a scary couple of days of baseball for the Toronto Blue Jays team. We'll see what this offense and this pitching staff is made of over the next 6 days.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, we will. As always, we appreciate you guys watching. It's a little bit of a longer episode. I love breaking down stuff like that, like the couch chats you have with the boys surrounding baseball or friends and family. I mean, I know, we sometimes get in it, when we're with our friends, but sometimes even, we're at an Easter dinner and everybody gets into it talking about Barry Bonds or, who's going to make the Hall of Fame this year. It's always super interesting. So, as always, thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for watching. Whatever you do, hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment about your thoughts and feelings down below. And on Monday, we'll be right back to it, covering a weekend of hopefully good baseball. We'll see you guys then.